what we need, because I think you might have a better handle on what we need and articulate it better than I would.
Okay, so I mean I think it was inevitable that we're going to come across this, and so I guess your group's tutorial, I didn't actually go back. I forgot about this, or maybe I looked at it and forgot. But you know, you have your blog on your nonprofit techie about group.
Yep.
But then the next thing is, I guess, and I'm pretty sure you do it in the Social Security financial statement. But maybe walk us through, or better, I think for Jacqueline, is to just use her. You've got your affidavit of care as a separate YAML, right? Yeah. Okay. So basically, say you have 4 children, and each child may have been in more than one court case, and each court case has a series of pieces of information about it. Jacqueline, you want to?
Yes, I'm pulling up the PDF right now.
Yeah.
So
essentially, we're talking about a group within a group, or a nested loop, or whatever. And then it gets further complicated. But I thought if we first start off with, if you think about the children, say a child's in 3 cases. How do we ask about those cases inside the children's list? And then there's more complicated stuff after that. But if we just start with that.
So maybe we could also show them what we have before we start recording. Maybe just show you what we've done.
Sure. Oh, if it's okay, I started recording now. I could stop and start a new one.
Let's keep recording, because if we just keep I think it's good to have context.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to go ahead and save and run. I don't know if this one's working. We'll find out.
So while you're doing that, if I understand right, what you're trying to figure out is, how do I do like a many-to-many relationship, basically, between the children and the
yes, that might be a good way to describe it. Yeah.
So
you could have 3 kids, and they can be involved in any number of the cases.
Yeah, and each case has its own set of information.
So, and how do you refer to the case? How is that used later? Are you just tracking it to give like a little bit detail about it, or?
Yeah. So you have the child, and you have so this would be a custody case, and the custody case was held at this date in this court. And this is the outcome of the case, and this was whether the parent was involved in the case, and here are the witnesses in the case. So again, you're going to have another.
So one child may have been involved in
loops inside of loops, or groups inside of groups.
Okay, but so really you have the children, and you have the cases, and one case could have 2 out of 3 kids.
Well, you don't go that
way.
You don't worry about the case having 2 out of 3 kids. You just go one direction. So I think the many to the many isn't really quite what we're talking about. We're talking about collecting a group within a group, and then sometimes a third group. So I think maybe that's where you'd use your multiple indices. Maybe not.
Yeah, that sounds like one way to do it for sure. But is the case really associated with only one kid at a time?
Yes, because it's not about the case. 2 kids. It's not about the case, it's about the kid. You're not asking about the cases. You're asking about each kid. And the case has information. So, I mean, another way to look at it is bank accounts. So, how many, tell me all your bank accounts. So I have a bank account with Citizens, account number 123, opened, blah, blah. It has a balance of 23. Do you have any other accounts with Citizens Bank? Yeah, I've got, another account 456, and it has a balance of $7. Any more accounts with Citizens Bank? No. Any more bank accounts? Yes. So you back out, and then you go to the next bank, which would be whatever, Golden Savings Bank or something.
Okay. So I'm looking at the form now. It's up there. So thanks for sharing that, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
So
But
for one docket number, could multiple children be involved?
yes, yes. So child A, B, and C could have the same, but you probably would list it 3 times here because it's still per the child, but I would think if it was the same action, you still would list it to be very clear and explicit, plus is calling for that.
Well, this could have child A. You could have child A 3 times here.
You could have child A 3 times.
Yeah,
you just B and have the
basically
same
what you're listing is, you're listing all of the names, all of the cases for each child. So you start with one child, you go through all the cases that child was involved in. So you won't have the same, if you have the same docket number, that's a separate issue because child B could have been in that case, but that's not what you're asking. You'd go to an addendum and you'd say, child B, maybe if you were an attorney, you could say child A and B. That would be pretty sophisticated. But I think,
I see what you're saying,
I think for us, we would just list them. All the cases that child A was involved in, all the cases that child B was listed with.
That's right. But I think that it's possible that child B would also be in the same case as child A, but you still would list it explicitly for each line. Yes.
Yeah.
And you could actually have 3 children and maybe there would be no other, child A had other cases, but B and C didn't.
Yeah.
So.
And most likely the situation would be if there's multiple children, probably the most common scenario is that they're in the same cases. That'd probably be the common scenario, right? Not necessarily the only scenario that's like common, but one of the more common.
Sure.
Okay. So lots of different ways to do this for sure. I think you might want to keep a master list of cases. And
yeah, we have that. Yeah, we would do that. We have.
You might want to collect them in the context of the child, but let somebody choose one of the existing cases, so they don't have to retype. That's not that much information.
Yeah, that
makes sense. That makes sense.
And
but what you could do is in that case,
what does that mean?
See, the thing is, what you might have is child, and then you'd have basically check all the boxes for the cases. So if this child was involved in a paternity case, a separate support case, so you check boxes next to all of those. But then each of those cases would be specific to that child. Each of those cases would have its own docket number, its own status, its own this checkbox of witness. This is the witness party, other none. That's the role that the parent played in that case.
Okay, but it would be the same for each case again, though, right?
No, it could be different for each case. You mean the same list? Same list of items for each. Is that what you mean?
No. So let's say there's one case. Would any of these boxes be different with relation to the child?
Yes. So say you were in a paternity case. You were a party to the paternity case. Say you were in a divorce case and you weren't a party to the divorce case. The child was in a divorce case and the child was in a paternity case. Both those cases are going to have different docket numbers. They could have different statuses, and your involvement could be different in each case.
No, but what I'm asking is a little different. So if it's the same docket number, all the other fields related to the court case are going to be the same. Does that make sense? Does the case stay static, basically, even if it applies to multiple children?
No, not necessarily, I don't think. But you're probably right most of the time, Quentin. But I could see where there are 2 children, it could be the same case, and maybe, or maybe,
they will have, say they're unmarried. Say the parents are unmarried. Each child is going to have a separate docket number.
Each child has a different docket number, even if it's the same. Okay, but then it would be really a different case in that.
Pardon?
But then it would be a different case.
Well, it's the same case because they're paternity.
But it's a different docket number.
It's not a case. It's the court that it's heard in, isn't it? But yeah, right.
What I'm trying to think of is the other than the number of children who are involved in the case, is the docket number kind of like, if we have that as a fixed field, are the other fields going to be the same? Like, so say we have child A, let's try filling this out. Child B, they have the same docket number, although I think these fields aren't quite
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah.
Then could it be like one of these has an X there and one has, well,
Well, it would be W, O, P, or N.
Yeah, but the point is that they're different.
Yes.
Right.
could they be different?
Yeah, I think they could be
With the same
because
docket number?
yeah, because they could be because they're the children involved in the case. It's really about the child. So say you're the father of one of these children and you're not the father of the other child.
Mm-hmm.
You may not be a party in one of those. Even though they're in the same case, you may have different involvement depending on the children.
So, okay. So the WOPN refers to
Yeah, the
person filling
parent's
out the
role.
form, not the child.
Yeah, it's the parent's
And
role.
you could
in the case.
be a party with respect to one of the kids, but not one of the other kids.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble figuring out how that would work, but all right. So I think basically, like, we can't necessarily assume that we can collect the list separately.
Right. Exactly. You really have to go
What
through.
would status normally be? Closed, open?
I forgot what
Pen-
that is.
pending- I might
Pending
have-
or concluded.
I might also have a list because I think status is called for somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I tried
There's
to
a
use
list in
that
the
list.
instructions. You don't have the instructions here, do you? It
Well,
says.
I actually, okay, let me just, I
Oh,
might
I
have
see.
also, this is
Oh,
this
click
one.
status. You don't have a drop down in status, do you?
Yeah, well, no, I think I just, not
Yeah.
yet, but I do think that I saw it in the other form because the other goal to this is if there's a,
Mhm.
in the actual, in the divorce complaint itself, it also asks for other actions. And I think that there might be some logic to using some predetermined statuses and maybe even having the field editable if the attorney wanted to override those predetermined statuses, just so that they could be used.
I have it on another interview. Wait a minute, but I'm just not sure.
Okay, but it's probably like the regular statuses of the case.
I
Which
think
could be-
so.
There we go.
It says-
Pending, concluded. Seems like.
It might be those might be the only two, really.
I think
Okay.
there are more, but let's just see.
But they're of that kind. All right, so those seem like they would be. Well, so in other words, you might want to let people choose from an existing docket number, but that might be it in court. Sounds like.
Yes, I agree. I think that's about it.
Okay.
And then the other fields
Hey,
should
I wanna
be
call.
individualized.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to figure out how useful that is to save there then, in that case. All right, so
Maybe,
you probably
maybe not.
it might not be at all. Yeah.
Oh, in the status column, you write custody awarded to and write the name of the person the court gave custody to and the date of the decision. If the court gave custody to DCF, write DCF and the date, or no custody awarded if the case was dismissed or the case was not about custody, like a name change case. Because remember, it's the status of this case. This is the affidavit disclosing care and custody. So the status is either custody awarded or no custody awarded, and then more details about custody awarded.
Okay. So that definitely is going to be different for each kid.
Yeah, definitely.
If it happens to be the same docket number. Well, I suppose not definitely. It could still be, makes sense that it would be following each other, but also that it might not. Okay. So I think that, Caroline, your instinct is right just to use multiple indices
Mm-hmm.
from what we've just talked about here. So, and it's for each child, right? So do we have a, okay. So what we'd want to do is probably just have a list of objects associated with each child, which is encompassing these fields. And we don't necessarily need to make a custom object here. We can just use the built-in DA object and add those fields to it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I think all we should need to do here is just go to make another objects block here.
Why do you make another one, Quentin?
I actually am not sure that it's definitely needed, but sometimes when you're using an object that you created earlier, it really needs to be on its own.
Oh, I see. So it's separate. Uh-huh, that's interesting.
Because you're using the object that was created here.
Right, so it needs to sort of define it before it does the next one.
Exactly. So I would just tend to try this. I've run into problems I didn't. It might be completely unnecessary though.
Yeah.
So we're going to define something called children I dot
cases.
cases.
Okay, this is what I thought. Oh, this is so cool. All right.
And it's going to be just a DA list of objects. So that should be all you really.
Objects. Okay.
Yeah. So that should do it. And actually, I think Jonathan was just answering this for somebody on the channel. And then let's go to your question. So what was it again? Okay, I could probably find it from that, I'm guessing.
You need the PDF? Oh, find the question, right?
Yeah, so this is the question here, right? Okay.
Explain.
So we're just going to call it
Gotcha.
That should be all I really need to do.
Should it be an I or do you want that to be a J?
Well, we're going to another level of the loop.
Oh, okay. So
Right.
that's why. Okay, very good.
Oh, that's great.
And then we can add the field for the attorney and the guardian ad litem separately. Caroline, do we?
Yeah,
Okay, we don't need to take Quentin's time for that.
right. Except, since this is so easy, the next thing to do, and this is, so basically you've created, if you think about this, you're going to have this great long list of the children and the cases. So as you said before, you may have more than one child in a case, or you may also have more than one GAL or more. So basically you have to mention, at some point you have to do the attorney in the case. But on the second page, Jacqueline, can you just bring up the PDF of the second page? Okay, so here, oops. So you see, Quentin, here, this is, you want to be able to pull out the attorneys that you've mentioned in this great big child I, case J. And I think this would be, this is one of those, I don't know, is this a set or it's not a tuple, but one of those other groups, so that.
Just the unique attorneys, in other words?
Yeah, so you just list of attorneys, but then you have to say which children here's where you get your association between, it's one to many, I guess, one attorney, and then you list the children whose cases the attorney was involved in, and the GAL. So you're getting that information. So basically you're going to have this, at one point, if you put all these children cases and children cases and attorneys together, you may have an attorney listed more than once. So you just want to pick the attorney and then go back and figure out which children were represented by that attorney. Same thing for the GAL.
Okay, so you don't even say here the attorney. That's interesting.
Right.
But you're thinking maybe name it here.
in the end,
when you're
you
asking
might as
about
well
case.
ask who the attorney was. And this might be a case where, when you were talking before, is if you've met
Maintain
the attorney before, you can
Mhm.
say this attorney, or you can say another attorney. I don't know if that's going to be, that's complicated, but that's
Mhm.
the next thing to do.
I don't think so. The only problem with that is, like, the normal way I would do it is with disable others. But what we could do is, you really only care about what information do you need for the attorney. Let's go back to that screen.
The names and their cases, I think that's it.
Oh, we have to say the cases too. Oh, well, that's easy though.
Actually,
Not the
it doesn't
cases,
even tell you. Yeah, it doesn't even tell you. It's
Which
not
one?
actually asking which case the attorney or GAL is
Yeah,
involved
it's
in.
not the
Isn't
case. It's just the child. Yeah.
Okay. So A, B, and C. And that's the other thing that we'll have to learn at one point, is assigning them that A, B, or C. D,
Yeah,
E, F.
that we can
But
do. We
that's
can
later.
do that the way we did client equals plaintiff or defendant thing.
Okie doke.
We can do that.
This is that one line if statement you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
not
so
even an if. We could just say child into child 0 is child A, child 1 is child B, child 2 is child C, etc.
it's kind of a weird lit form, isn't it? I wonder why
It's
they
what?
It's kind of a weird form. I wonder why they want it this way.
It's a terrible form, and everybody agrees it's a terrible form, and nobody knows how to fill it out. It is the worst form in the Massachusetts trial courts, I think. At least everybody agrees it's the worst form in the probate and family court. The second worst is the financial statement, but this is the absolute worst because nobody even knows how to fill. Pro se's never know how to fill this out, and they don't have the information they need anyway.
Right. I mean, it's asking for information that seems like the court is in a better position to answer. But I guess it's
So
nice.
I'm about finished doing it in A to J author, so I know this form fairly well.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right. So what I would say is maybe have on this screen here,
Yeah,
it's a field for attorney's name or GAL's name. I guess both.
yeah, or both. You want both,
Yeah.
right?
And we could have it be a drop-down list, which every time that you go to the next screen, it will add to that list.
That would be great.
Let me think.
So you just pick it. You just click on it.
What we would do is make it a combo box, so you could type in a new name.
Right.
That would probably be the best way to do it. So, yeah, let's think about this. So, you probably, just for performance reasons, want to store that list separately.
You mean in a different, I mean, we can't provide that list to people because they've got to create it, don't they? We're not going to know who the attorneys or the GALs are.
Correct.
So
they've
got to, basically, they build that list themselves.
As they go along.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, you would want to store it somewhere else so that instead of each time you go to the next screen to another case, running through all of the children and all of the attorneys, all the cases,
right,
generate it. It's kind of stored as kind of like a index, like a cache.
Yeah. So
but that may not matter because you're not talking about hundreds. You're talking about maybe 10 in a normal
most, yeah.
situation.
Yeah, you're not
Probably
talking
even fewer. So, okay. And that, I think, isn't as urgent a thing. It's just like a usability thing to make it easier to fill that in if it's going to be repetitive.
So how do you build a combo box that is that creates itself?
Well, it wouldn't really build itself, but here.
Well,
you have to do another code block, which I think you would just have it set to reconsider.
Uh-huh.
So we would make a block like this. guess we'll do something like this.
Could you put the GALs in the same code block, or do you have to have them be a separate code block?
I would make it a separate code block, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we'll do something like this. Actually, I think I was doing it right the first time. Just trying to think through this.
Mm-hmm. Ah, gotcha. Okay.
I actually want this to be a set, like you said.
This means we're getting good, Quentin, when we ask these ridiculously complex questions. But I think this is the big advantage, isn't it? I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, I was saying, the forms that are the hardest to fill out are the hardest ones for developers to put together. But that's why we're doing it, to help people fill out these difficult forms.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's only going to be one attorney associated with each case, right?
I think so, yeah. I think we're going to make that executive decision.
Okay. So it's going to be an optional field, I assume, because someone might be pro se.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to check the syntax for set. I think it's append, but.
I wonder if we should give people in the list of attorneys that they are building.
Just add, okay.
Whether we should say, I don't know what the language would be, but somebody represented. No, you know what? They're not going to be pro se because these are attorneys representing the children. If the children are in a case, if the children are a party in the case, they will have representation. There's no children are going to be representing themselves. So we don't have to have a pro se, because that for the adults you can have a pro se, but that's later on in the form, and you don't have to have cases for that. You just say the cases that you were involved in. So I think we're not going to have any pro ses here.
There'll never be a pro se.
There won't be pro ses because this question is only about attorneys representing children.
But this isn't really a question, though. So, like, if we added the attorney field here to where we're asking about the case that they're adding might not have had an attorney associated with it, right?
Right, because maybe the child wasn't represented. So we can put a note in there. If the child was represented,
no, it's okay. I mean, I think we just make it optional.
Yeah.
So name
we'll put a note explaining.
Attorney. But wait, who was the attorney going to be for?
Well, that's it for child, exactly.
It's for the child?
Yeah, this is for the child.
Okay. And it's associated with the case as well.
Yeah. We can just do attorney, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. So this is interesting. So this is okay.
So we only want to we want to do something different, I guess, if it's not defined. And I think there's a way to merge a set or something. So let's just check to see what that is.
So are you putting Python into docassemble here? Is that what, because it's code? Yeah. That's Python code? Okay.
Yep, all the code blocks are really Python code.
Okay. I forget these things.
So of course, I should have remembered that it's a union.
Yeah. Okay, so basically you create you redefine attorneys gathered
Mm-hmm.
as basically it's the unique values of attorneys gathered.
Correct.
Okay. And what's at temp is the set, it is a set.
Correct. Yeah. So the reason I do this is because if we defined it with the same name as attorneys gathered,
Yeah.
then, well,
It would
DocuSign wouldn't finish the code block. It would just
It
stop.
would erase it, right? It would erase attorneys, it would get stuck.
Yeah, it wouldn't move on to the next lines.
Right.
They would never run. So we want to have two cases that we're handling here. One is if we haven't gathered anybody yet, which I'm having as the default case. But the first case here is where we've already gathered some people. We're going to add to the existing set.
Yeah. If it's not, yeah, else.
And then we have to do one more thing. So this, the way that this works, it will work so that it'll require gathering the whole list, which we don't want to do because we won't have all the cases yet. So we have to do one more thing, which I'm just going to have to check the DocuSign syntax for because I forget how that works with DA sets.
This is so cool.
So let's look at the syntax for, it's going to be on either the objects or the groups page, but let's see. I think we could just use .elements, but I think there's a list of the things that were gathered somewhere here. Oh, there we go, complete elements. Let's see. I'm not actually sure that's what we want to use, but we can try it.
There you go down. You're down to intersection, union intersection.
Right, which we don't necessarily want to do either here. But I think we're going to just use the
elements.
Complete, right.
Oh.
I think that's the one we want to use, but we'll see. Because when you refer to an object, a DA list object in DocAssemble, usually it tries to gather the whole thing. Okay, let me think about this.
Yeah, plain old elements versus complete elements.
Yeah, let's try it and see if it triggers anything. Because if it gives us an error that says, it might create an infinite loop, basically, I think is what would happen.
Yeah.
But I believe that should do it. Complete elements.
And then once that list is built, we can use that. We have to associate it back with the children, but let's see.
And the reason we have reconsider true here is because we want it to be run every time it's referenced.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to just do data
So
type.
if you say, basically if they haven't said attorney yet, at temp is just an empty, it's just empty, right?
Yep, exactly. Okay, and we have to do one more thing, which is just tell on the screen where we're gathering the child, do they have any cases? So
I think she's, do you have knowledge of any cases?
Okay.
It's a, if you look for knowledge, you'll see it. Where is it? There's a knowledge somewhere. There it is. Other actions. Does you participate? Yeah. So if it's, so data type, yes, no, radio. Wait, that doesn't have a variable.
It does
right?
at the end here.
Oh,
No.
knowledge. Oh, yeah, it is knowledge, right.
So
So if knowledge, right. That's the cases. So if the client has knowledge, then they ask about the cases.
Are you using these variables yet? Anywhere else, Jacqueline?
Whoops. You there, Jacqueline?
Well, we're still on her screen, so she must be. Maybe she's just
Oh,
muted.
yeah. Her daughter's leaving, and she's been gone for a year. She's here for a few hours, and she's leaving. So maybe
But
Okay.
no. Actually, I just got a quick call. I was listening up until you said there were no choices, and then I think Quentin said yes. So I was paying attention up until about 3 minutes ago.
Okay.
So did you have a
No problem.
specific question for me?
Are you using these fields, the one knowledge and
Yes, because what happens is I think we also determined that, well, I don't know exactly how we're using them. Somebody could have knowledge, if they participated in something, then they would always have knowledge of it, but not necessarily the other way around. So I think those fields aren't necessarily in the PDF, you mean?
they're not in the PDF?
No, they actually are. They might be, because there's 2 checkboxes if you go up on page 1.
Oh, okay.
So they might be.
I know or do not know. Okay, I see.
Yeah, so they are, I think they are being used.
Okay, so let's do this. We need to set the are there any for the children I. So we're going to do that in a code block in that case. Oh, wait, no, that's not what you want to do.
you want to say if knowledge, then there are any is true, right?
But what is above named children? This is for all of the children.
So you have to name all the children that are involved in the current case. And then you have to talk about whether they're involved in other cases now or other cases previously. So these children may be in this form just because they're involved in this case. They may not have been involved in any other cases.
So instead of asking this, you might want us to ask, like, for each child, were there any cases that you know of? Because we don't have to follow the syntax of the form.
Right.
And actually, I think we started going down that path, but for whatever reason, we went back to this just to
what it is you're asking, so you have a few children, you're asking the question multiple times if you do it that way.
That is true. But you do still need to ask it for each child later, right? At least the way that DocAssemble works.
That's true, because, well, no, actually, I mean, there's only one checkbox, so it's not a checkbox for each child. So essentially, if you
say no,
if you say, I don't know of any cases involving any of these children, then you're done. You have to list the children, but you don't have to go through this ridiculous listing of cases, past and previous, past and present.
And at one point, we did have that question pertaining in the child question. We had any case, as long as somebody had said yes to participated or knowledge, we did show the question, tell me about the case involving this child. We had started going down that path. I don't know how far we went.
But how do you know which child?
And also, this would be, do you know? And it would be just yes, no, not yes, no, maybe. Because the question is, do you know of any cases involving this child? So either you do know or you don't know.
And then if you know of them, but there aren't, wait.
Yeah. And then maybe you take out the participation question, because you say, what was your role? And then what you can do is go through your list and find out if your role was a party or a witness or something else. If your role was anything but none, then you in any of these, then you check the box, yes, I participated.
Correct. Yeah. So you can take out this because
Yeah.
it's going to be something you can calculate for them.
Yeah, you can figure that out. Yeah.
That's what I was just thinking exactly. So, and it's really the knowledge question.
Yeah.
I guess. So anyway, we'll leave that for now. But well, I'll show you what the code looks like. You're gonna have to get rid of the question in order for it to actually do anything. So it'd be like, let me think about that. I think there's a way to break out of the loop. So that's what we really want to do. Oops, actually.
Would it be cases there are any? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not cases I, because there's only one.
Yeah. Is it children? Is it child cases there are any? Or it's child, because it's for each one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's break. I think it's, let me just double check that. Yeah, okay. So what I'm doing here is,
And then go ask the questions?
Yeah.
So you're breaking the child loop temporarily to go ask the questions about the case. And if
no, so once we found one case,
you go to the next child.
well, we don't have to go through all of the children to figure out if they have a case. We only have to find at least one child with a case. So instead of continuing the loop and just setting knowledge to true multiple times, we just do it once.
I see.
That's what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's just to do the check mark and the knowledge block,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Oh my God.
And the question that you added at line 173, does that need to be set off by the quotation marks or no? Line 173.
It's a label. It's a label.
It's a label, so it does not. Okay.
Okay, so there's one more scenario we have to figure out a value for knowledge if this doesn't execute. So I think if not defined knowledge, I think this should work. Because we don't define knowledge unless there's a case.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so I think that should do it there.
Jeez.
So this is a conditional statement here. So knowledge only gets a value if it turns out to be true. So, okay.
So you've got your if child cases there are any knowledge equals true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if not defined is a separate.
It's out of the for loop.
Right, it's not in that if loop. You're not going to do else.
Correct.
Right.
Because if it is defined, then we know that it's true.
Yeah.
It will only be defined to being true. That's the only kind of value it can get.
Mm-hmm.
And it will definitely be defined if there are any cases. Otherwise, we want it to be false, for sure.
Right.
Let me just look at this again to make sure I didn't make any mistakes. Do you know of any cases? So I should get that there are any. And then let me think about this. So there is another, we still have to figure out.
It's in the child, it's your nested case, isn't it? Your cases, where your cases are. So this is case attorney. If you go up with your children, where do we ask about the cases? Oh,
Here.
court, here we go.
Okay, so we need one more question here. That's going to handle saying when the list is finished being gathered.
You've got your show if knowledge.
Okay, so that should do it. I mean, you could say there's different ways to do it in terms of the number of cases.
Is this a separate, the question about is that it's standalone case question? It is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Each case gets this question, yeah.
Right. So then the last thing is, and it's probably in the code at the bottom, we've been messing around with that, and I've just made it worse than Jacqueline had it in the first place. But if we want to pull out the attorneys and the GALs from these lists at the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
how would you pull those out? That would be a...
Yeah, I would do it like something like, so you still need this list of attorneys, but it's different than the one we've been using to fill
Right.
in the field.
Yeah, because you have to, not only you have to pull out the attorneys, you have
Yeah.
to pull out which children. So basically you have a unique list of attorneys, which will be there.
Mhm.
And then for each attorney, you have to go back and look at which children.I they were associated with.
Right. So let's think about the best way to do that. Again, like you don't have to really think about performance too much because these lists aren't going to be huge. They're going to be
Right.
like 20 people at most.
Yeah.
So I would just do something like this. So go back through our list of children again.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do we could use the same variable name.
Because it's just a temporary variable, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to be a DA list. It could just be a regular list. Although actually using a DA list will let you fill in those fields. So actually let's make it a DA list.
Well, you don't need any fields. Well, you need to know the child. You just need to know the attorney's name, which will be one field. I don't think we're asking first. We're not asking a whole lot of questions about the attorney. We just have a name.
Right. That's all only thing we're asking. But we do need to know which children
right.
are associated with that attorney, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So let's make it have two fields, which are the name and the...
Oh, I see. So this is a list of objects, right?
Oh, let me think about this. Maybe we can't use a temp thing like that because
it's not temporary. It's a full-blown.
overridden.
Just call it attorney list.
Well, I guess it's just going to be used once. So yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we shouldn't reuse the original one because
Right.
then it will stop right there.
Right. And also it's not really a temporary list because I mean, maybe that's okay to call it temp, but it's it's a full-blown list that you're going to dump into the PDF at the end, aren't you? With 2 attributes, I guess, 2 values.
And just so you know, I don't think I've edited those fields in the PDF yet or named them in the bottom of the doc assemble where you map the field names to the variable names.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I can do that later.
Yeah. We've got plenty to play around with, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Okay, so and then again, we're going to go to the case level here. So for case in child.cases, and we don't have to worry about complete elements anymore. So, okay, so we're going to do attorney list. I was thinking like, oh, we have to make sure to avoid defining it before it's ready, but then I remembered it's not really ready. It's not really defined until it gets the dot gathered equals true. So,
Okay.
So we're going to have that at the end. I don't know. Sorry, this might just be like me thinking out loud, and you might not have been thinking of.
No, that's okay. We'll just follow.
Yeah.
Because I think the thing is, you need to think out loud to put it together, and then we can
Correct.
kind of deconstruct it.
Okay, so let me just check the syntax for append object here.
Is that the child append object?
Yeah, that's going to be the attorney actually.
Oh, the attorney.
Yeah.
Huh, that'd be interesting. Oh, that's adding the attorney itself, right? Uh-huh.
Okay, so just trying to remember. We're going to just call it DA object. So we need to say what thing it's going to be. I guess it probably just defaults to being a DA object now that I think about it. So attorney.name equals case.attorney. And actually, let's wrap this in. So not every case has an attorney. I forgot about that. So
Right.
case.attorney.
Children.case.attorney?
I'm just realizing it might be empty. So we don't want it to force it to gather the attorney's name if there's no attorney. So should we have a checkbox instead? I think we just need to add in I think we should call this case.has attorney.
Uh-huh. And then you're gonna, yeah.
In that place too.
And then you have to, will that be, we're adding that? No, you know what? No, if there's a case, I'm just trying to think. The child, right, no, you have to say, did the child have an attorney? Unless you'll know, in certain cases, actually, I can't remember, if we had a family lawyer here. The thing is, I think in certain cases, the child gets an attorney automatically. So if we knew what the case is, like they're going to have a selection of cases.
Mm-hmm.
But there may be cases when a child does have an attorney in cases, like, so DCF, custody, the child will definitely have an attorney. But in other custody cases, the child may not have an attorney. Yeah, so I guess we do have to check for has an attorney.
I'm thinking about this again now. I'm wondering if maybe I started with the wrong list to go through. Maybe we should go through the attorney list, because later on this form, we're not filling out based on the child. We're going by the attorney. So we should really go through all of the attorneys and see, was there any child that matches?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So actually, this is backwards. So we already have our attorneys.
In case attorney, how do you?
Okay, so we're going to go through our full list. Let's indent all of these one more level. And we're going to have a list of
children.
Right. So let's do this. Okay, so and I just realized I can't do this same variable twice. I got to rename it something. We're not going to reuse it, so it's fine. Just right here.
For each attorney in the attorney's gathered list, add another attorney.
Add it to a new list. This new list is going to have more information. It's going to have a list.
The new list is attorney, right? The new list is attorney, right?
And the new item is going to be attorney, yeah.
The new item is attorney. So what's the new list? Will we name
attorney list.
Oh, okay, right. So attorney list, right, is defined by each attorney. Okay.
So we go through a list of attorney names that we've been gathering all along.
Right.
Our set of attorneys' names, that is.
Right.
And then we are going to check to see which children are associated with that attorney.
Right. So for each name, this is the T attorney, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Jesus.
Sorry.
I knew it was really hard. Attorney.children add child.
And really, we just care about their name.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll use their full name.
We might have to, this might be one of these things because we also have to assign these children as A, B, and C, and D. So that's one more wrinkle.
Oh,
but
where did we do the letters?
Well, this is on page 2. So actually page 2 is the safe. Page 2 is the safe page. So I think we can just use the children's names.
Okay. Wow, that's confusing.
Because this is a separate page, so this page can get impounded. I think so. The first page you just want the children to be listed by A, B, and C. But on the second page you can have the children's names.
Let me just try to explain what I'm doing here in a comment. So, okay. I guess we could have probably built our attorneys gathered list a little differently, but the reason to do it this way, is there a good reason? I'm not really sure. I guess because this list is dynamic. It's going to change throughout. This one is going to be done at the end, just one time. So
yeah.
The reason why I'm definitely commenting this is because I'd be amazed if there wasn't a mistake somewhere in here.
This reminds us what we're looking for, what we're actually trying to do. to the list of attorneys who have you're adding the child's name by that attorney, yeah.
And actually, it should just be, to be clear, I should call it a set, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
So, because there's
Yeah.
no duplicates. You're not trying to list a child twice if the attorney happens to represent them on 3 cases.
No,
Correct.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Only for unique attorneys, yeah.
And unique children for that
Yeah.
related to that attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think this is all right. Let's look at it again. So, okay, we take our attorney list. It's going to be a new list, new DA list. We're not going to use auto gathering on it. And I guess this is probably unnecessary now I think about it, because we already said it's going to only take DA objects as the object type.
So you're going to append the attorney name and comma with the, and is that children equals set,
It's a new set.
a new set of the children that are specific to that attorney?
Yep.
Right.
And now we go through our list of children, and we go through all of their cases. If they had an attorney,
And if they,
we check to see if it's this attorney, and if it is, we add this child.
oh, that's the attorney and attorney list, right? The attorney dot name is the attorney and attorney list.
And we've defined that right up here.
Yeah.
So I'm just relying on this here. So it looks like that's the syntax of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I might be wrong here. Let me check. See if we can find the syntax of an append object. I think you give it a list of keyword arguments.
You see other methods. You got your append at the bottom, item to append.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Optional keyword argument.
Yeah. Oh, where does it say that?
So you go down to the red at the bottom, append, right, go up 2 more lines. It takes an optional keyword argument.
Set instance name. Okay, so maybe we don't want to try doing that here, and we don't necessarily need to. So let's just make it, let's take that out. And that actually is a little easier to read anyway.
Do we want to put a comma in there, or does it put it in itself?
No, no comma. Here we're just setting, we have this new object that's called attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And we're giving it a name, and we're saying, giving it a list of children or a set of children.
Right.
So the comma was only needed because it was multiple arguments inside this append object.
So what I mean, when you display it, when you're listing so basically, do you want to say attorney Quentin, comma, Henry, Franny, Zoe, next attorney, Jacqueline, Caroline, and Meredith.
Yep. So you'll have to figure that part out in the
How to
field.
display it in the PDF, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to look something like this.
That's right. Each attorney's on a new line, so that's good. So we might do for attorney and attorney list. Child child set.
And I believe when you refer to a list, it automatically gets treated like comma and uses this, but we could probably just explicitly call it. Remember this function here puts the comma in between each item.
Right. So this is okay because it's actually a series of lines, I think. So I would think that you do a for loop on the PDF.
Well, you can't do a for loop in the PDF, unfortunately. You have to fill each field.
Oh.
So this one would get item 0,
Yeah.
this one would get item 1, item 2, and so on down.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
And then you'd have, once you got to item 3, I think we did this logic with you on Wednesday, right, Caroline? So for how to get the rest of the list, if there are any, for the appendix. So that's what you're going to want to do here.
Yeah.
So this should be that syntax, but you'll have to try it. So you're going to add that to your field statement for your PDF.
Okay. You're still there, Jacqueline?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Taking it all in.
There's no errors. I just saved. There weren't any errors, so that's good. I don't know if you're using all those fields yet.
She's not using them at all yet, so we.
Okay, so test it.
Up the PDF, yeah.
Yeah, test it, and then I would, try it without worrying about the PDF syntax. Like, just add a mandatory field there somewhere that.
Well, I was just creating just like blank Word documents and just upload just with all the fields and just seeing if I get the information I wanted in there first. And I think that's a good way to test it.
Yep, but I think we got it. So this is the basic structure that I would use for these, and then I might have made a mistake. I frequently do the first time I'm trying something. So
some of the fields, the only fields that I haven't done yet were the attorney and GAL on the back page. The other we could test it and just see if we get the information for the cases.
Oh, the cases, but we haven't.
I mean, not all of it
yet, right?
Well, I have the witness party, other none. Yeah, the front of the form. I may not be understanding the question right, but right now, even before we started working, if I had filled out some basic information about a case that a child had, it would flow to my PDF.
But it wouldn't have shown the case list. That's what we were wanting to test to see if we were gathering that right, I guess. Yeah, so once you've try it and see if you can, if you run into any problems, then let me know. And
I'm not sure we have a case list yet either. You don't have a drop down of cases, Jacqueline.
If you're talking about case types like custody, divorce, no, and I don't have like the statuses yet. But what I'm saying is if you, at one point when we answered the questions regarding do you have any knowledge or participate in any cases regarding the children, there was a question about the child that had asked for the case information, including the county, the docket number, status, and the role. And if you were to fill out those fields, they would flow to the PDF. But I realized that more work needs to be done. I was just suggesting that maybe we could test it and see what happens with the PDF. But I can do that offline too. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think you'll just have to change it to refer to these new values. So it's children.cases as a list. So that's something that wasn't there before.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And your variables have changed, so they won't.
Okay. So they won't map. I got it.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So yeah, why don't we stop there? I think
that's good. Thank you, Quentin, very much.
No, you're welcome.
Jacqueline, can you publish this to GitHub so I can get a copy of it, please?
Yes, absolutely. I'll do that before I head off for the day.
Great.
Okay. Thank you both very much. Caroline, I'll plan on meeting with you next Friday.
Yeah.
Quint, I actually have a Wednesday. I'm in Lawrence and Lowell, so I won't be able to make the other meeting. But hopefully the next Wednesday I'll be able to start resuming those ones.
Oh, Quentin, I just wanted to say, Mariah asked if you could label the playlist videos on YouTube. Some of them are labeled and some of them are just labeled with a date, just to give some indication of what the video is about.
Oh, yeah, I can try to do that.
sometimes you have to, maybe, I don't know if you can change the title or just change a description. Sometimes you have to upload the video again. It's not worth it. But
No, I can edit it. Actually, I could
on it.
crowdsource that maybe. if you figured out what the topic is and want me to add it, I
Yeah,
can do that.
I'll do that. That's what I was thinking. That makes sense.
Caroline, can I ask you a question too before we go too far? Can I just add this particular YAML to the divorce package?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And
Thank
the
you.
template as well.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Got it in there. It looks like you've got it in there.
Yes, I did at one point.
This is a different interview.
Well, you want me to publish the new one.
Yeah,
So,
but you make sure all your YAMLs, if you're going to put in the divorce package, you don't want to overwrite the divorce package you already have.
okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't it once, maybe we could just hang on for 5 minutes, make sure I do it right? Okay, so Quentin can always drop off if he wants.
We have to go to a go-to meeting because it's Quentin's Zoom.
I can leave it running if you want. It's
can you
fine.
leave it running for a few minutes? Okay, but stop the recording.
Stop the recording now. And
okay. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. Thank you.
You too.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.
Thanks, Quentin.